And a very happy Jimmy Buffett Friday to you at 12:08 in the West. It's the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wang is off today. He'll be back with us on Monday. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Well, I woke up to some surprising news today. Eleni Kounalakis, the lieutenant governor of the state of California, announced that she is dropping out of the race for governor and will instead run for California treasurer. This makes the field of candidates, which is a large field, running for governor, one short of where it was yesterday. Of course, before Eleni Kounalakis announced that she would not be running for governor, the former vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris, announced that she would also be taking a pass on the run for governor. All of this leads to the question, okay, if the front runner is no longer in Kamala Harris, and the woman who many, including myself, believe would benefit the most from Kamala Harris not being in the race, who is now the likely next governor of California? Well, there's a poll that dropped by Emerson College that showed if the election were held today, former Orange County Congresswoman Katie Porter would finish in first place with 18% of the vote. Finishing second would be Republican former Fox News host Steve Hilton at 12%. Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco wins the bronze at 7%. And then below him, you have former L.A. Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, billionaire developer Rick Caruso, who has not yet announced his candidacy for governor, Javier Baccaria, the former Secretary of Health and Education Services, Eleni Kounalakis, who is now out of the race and running for treasurer, Klubeck, who's a billionaire who I know nothing about, Betty Yee, the former controller, she's at 2%, and Tony Atkins, the former president pro tem of the Senate, is also at 2%. Meaning, if the election were today, the top two would be Katie Porter and Steve Hilton. And that's what we would be looking at on our November ballot. Now, why did the news this morning surprise me so much? Well, when you look at the field of candidates and you look at what Kamala Harris taking a pass on the race meant, there needed to be a Democratic establishment candidate for all of them to rally around. And Eleni Kounalakis was the person best positioned to be that candidate. Because Katie Porter, even though a lot of people know who she is not well liked among the Democratic Party elite. In fact, she's not well liked basically anywhere. But with the Democratic Party elite, they all hate her guts. They regard her as the Rosie O'Donnell of California politics. Nancy Pelosi, in particular, hates her. She wrote a book that was the political equivalent of Geraldo Rivera's book when he talked about different things like having sex with Bette Midler. She wrote a tell-all that made her colleagues look really, really bad and made her look really, really good. If you think you can do that and get away with it and still have people like you, you're on drugs. The Democratic Party will do anything they can to prevent that woman from becoming governor of California. If she becomes governor of California, not only will she ruin the lives of Republicans and independents, she'll ruin the lives of Democrats too, and they recognize that. The product that Katie Porter is selling is a bizarre one. What she essentially is selling is she's selling a grievance not only with the establishment, but a left-wing grievance with the Democratic Party. She thinks they're corrupt. She thinks they are beholden to corporate interests. And she thinks that only she has the answers. She's a version of Elizabeth Warren. Well, if you're the Democratic Party and she thinks that you and your structure are corrupt and only she is the solution, then you don't like that. You look at her not as an ally, but as an enemy. And when you get elected to be governor, you get to do things like appoint people to boards and commissions and judicial offices, cabinet secretaries, those sorts of things. And if you're a party person, the party helps you fill those vacancies, and you take care of the people in the party. Well, she doesn't play nice with those people. So if she gets elected as a Democrat, she'll be arguably to the left of Gavin Newsom, but she's not going to play nice with the Democratic Party. She's going to come in there with her own people and her own ideas, and she's not going to give a damn what they have to say. Well, that's not how you play nice with your own party. And from their point of view, why should we help her get that office if she's not going to turn around and do anything for us? And I think it's important to note, if Katie Porter were to be elected governor, she would be to the left of Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, at his core, believes in nothing other than Gavin Newsom accumulating more power. And he's been that way his entire career. When you go back and you look at Gavin Newsom on the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, he would be what they regard as right-leaning. He was that way as mayor, too. When he became lieutenant governor, he had no duty, so who knows what his politics were then. But then when it came time to run for governor and Antonio Villaraigosa had all the charter school money all wrapped up, he needed the support of the teachers' unions, so he moved over to the left. He did that out of convenience, not because of any core beliefs. But the other thing that's at play with Gavin Newsom is really two other factors. One is the tech industry provides him with considerable amounts of campaign cash. And if a private business provides you with large sums of money, you have to make sure that that private industry is taken care of. So when the unions go up against Silicon Valley over things like driverless cars, driverless rideshare, driverless trucks, Gavin sides with Silicon Valley over the unions. And that's not lost on the unions. But if you have a Katie Porter and Silicon Valley is not going to get behind her, that's never going to happen, and the Democratic Party's not going to get behind her, she can give the unions everything they want and more, because that's where the love is going to come from. In Katie Porter, we would have a governor who would not be able to say no to the unions. Gavin, at least on occasion, has the ability to do that just because he knows who butters his bread. He also is extremely ambitious. He wants to become president of the United States. So the consideration of various interest groups in California may be relevant to him, and they may not be relevant to him. The only thing that's relevant to him right now is putting together a team and a campaign that can win the White House. That is all he cares about. Well, if that's all you care about, then these groups that have interests in front of the legislature in Sacramento, they have to take a back seat to that. Katie Porter might be delusional enough to think that she can be president someday, but she is going to take care of those unions. She is going to give them whatever they want. There is only going to be a gas pedal in Sacramento and not a brake. And the Democratic Party also understands that. So my guess is, even though Katie Porter is polling well right now in first place, once the Democratic Party starts going after her, and once her opponents in the race start going after her, those numbers are going to come back down to reality. Part of the reason that she's polling so well is she just spent a ton of money promoting herself as a candidate for the United States Senate. She wasn't able to make it on the November ballot in that race, and of course she alleged that the election was rigged. Katie Porter is someone I would assume is not going to remain in first place over the long term. She is there now. It makes sense to me now. But when the other candidates start throwing punches, she's going to come down. Eleni Kounalakis, the lieutenant governor, who's a member of a family that's one of the top 10 richest families in the state of California, had the ability to do that. she had the ability to spend whatever money it would take to dirty up Katie Porter's reputation and knock her off the November ballot. Now that Eleni Kounalakis is not there, no one in the race, as of now, has the resources to do that to her. That doesn't mean that'll be the case on Election Day, but as of now, Antonio doesn't have the money, Baccaria doesn't have the money, Tony Atkins doesn't have the money, the Republicans don't have the money, none of them have the money, which means there's opportunity for more candidates. The obvious candidate to jump into the race, who has the resources to bloody up Katie Porter, is Rick Caruso, the developer from Los Angeles, the billionaire, the man who ran for mayor against Karen Bass and lost, the Republican turned independent turned Democrat. He has the ability to do that if he gets into the race. And if he gets into the race and no one else gets into the race, that benefits him immeasurably. I think you almost have to regard him as a favorite for the November ballot if he jumps in and no one else does. Now, that being said, as much as the Democratic Party doesn't like Katie Porter, I'm not sure the Democratic Party likes Rick Caruso either. I don't think they trust him. We had John Thomas on this program earlier this week, a Republican strategist who used to work for Rick Caruso. And I asked him the question point blank. When Rick Caruso became a Democrat, do you think his personal politics changed, or do you think he changed his branding? And without hesitation, John Thomas said, Rick Caruso is the same guy I knew when I first met him. Nothing has changed except for his branding. If you're the Democratic Party and you have a Democratic governor who is essentially a conservative, that's not going to make you happy. That's not going to make you warm and fuzzy. In fact, you're going to regard him as the enemy. And I'm sure when you get the grand poobahs of the Democratic Party in a room, people like Nancy Pelosi and Barbara Boxer and all the rest of them, and you were to ask them, do you trust Rick Caruso? The answer to a person will be no. They will acknowledge that he's a registered Democrat, but what they see is a Republican. And right now, Democrats see anyone semi-associated with the Republican Party as being an agent of Donald Trump. If that's how Nancy Pelosi sees him, and that's how the rest of the power brokers within the Democratic Party see him, they're going to do whatever it takes to stop him too. Which means the Democratic Party has a huge problem on their hands. If the two candidates who are most likely to make it to the November ballot are candidates they regard as unacceptable, they're in for a world of hurt. Now, the two candidates would be unacceptable for different reasons, but that's how they see them. Which is why I think, even if Rick Caruso enters the race, you're going to see another Democratic candidate and potentially another Republican candidate jump in the race. Because as of right now, with Eleni Kounalakis out of the race, there is not a candidate that the Democratic establishment regards as acceptable. Now, the wild card is if they start to look at Antonio Villaraigosa differently. Right now, they don't see him as a viable option. They see him as yesterday's news. If he can start raising money and he can start moving up in the polls, maybe what they'll do is get involved in a marriage of convenience and decide that Antonio is their candidate. As of right now, they haven't done that, but that's a possibility. Other candidates who can jump in the race include potentially celebrities. Imagine if George Clooney, we had Arnold Schwarzenegger, a Republican celebrity, but we haven't had a Democratic celebrity on the ballot here in California in a long time. But when you look back at the 2024 presidential race, it was George Clooney and Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama who pushed Joe Biden out of the race. George Clooney lives here. If George Clooney decides that, like his father, who ran for Congress in Kentucky, he's going to put his name on the ballot and get involved in politics, he could jump in the race, and that could change the dynamic of that campaign. You also have other candidates who have name brands but aren't being considered at this point as viable candidates for governor. Take, for example, Nancy Pelosi's daughter. She is someone who is rumored to be a candidate to replace her mother in Congress. However, there's a state senator in San Francisco, Scott Wiener, who many people believe could beat Christine Pelosi for that congressional seat, in which case the Pelosi's would have nothing. But if Nancy stays in office and runs her daughter for governor and puts the Democratic Party behind her, well, then you could have the governor's seat and the congressional seat. You don't have to give anything up. That's a possibility. I think right now, with Kamala Harris and Eleni Kounalakis out of the race, a lot of people, including people who haven't been talked about much, are thinking about the possibility of jumping in the race. And if some of these people jump in, they could really shake the snow globe. But right now, here's my question to you at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. As of now, Katie Porter is polling in first place. If the election were today, she wins the gold medal. Do you think the people of California would ever elect Katie Porter to be governor of this state? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Your calls coming up right here on The John Phillips Show. Is it time to downsize? Selling your home doesn't have to be a hassle. With Seller's Advantage, you can skip the agent's commissions and costly repairs. By the time you pay for repairs and agent fees, you could have already sold your home for a fair, competitive price without the worry of the deal falling through. Here's what Chris Chavez, a real Seller's Advantage customer, had to say. Quote, Seller's Advantage was definitely the best company I've worked with. They offered me more than I expected, and the whole process was great. They were helpful, always answered the phone, and willing to help. I can't say enough about the experience. Much better than going through a realtor, end quote. Get your free, no-obligation cash offer today. Call Seller's Advantage at 888-303-AS-IS, 888-303-AS-IS, 888-303-2747, or find them online at sellersadvantage.com. DRE number 01961658. Kamala Harris is not running for governor. The lieutenant governor, Eleni Kounalakis, announced she's not running for governor. Orange County Congresswoman, former Orange County Congresswoman, Katie Porter is polling in first. Do you think the state is dumb enough to elect her governor? 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Your calls up next. Hey guys, John Phillips here for Hollywood Suits. I was blown away the first time I went to Hollywood Suits. First of all, they had thousands of suits just in my size alone. You see, they supply the industry with suits that are sold in stores all over the country for 4 or 5 times more than what you'd pay at Hollywood Suits. Now, let me get into the specifics here. You'll get 3 complete suits made of the finest wool for only $599. I know it sounds unbelievable, but even at that price for all 3 suits, they throw in 3 cotton shirts, 3 ties, belts, socks, and handkerchiefs, all at no extra charge. That's not 1, but 3 merino wool suits with all of the accessories for $599. They also have designer suits from Armani, Canali, Salvatore Laurenti, and so many more, all at the lowest prices anywhere. They fit everyone. Hollywood Suits. 3 gigantic locations in Hollywood, Torrance, and Westminster. Here's the number, 800-SUITS-99, or find them online at hollywoodsuits.com. It's the John Phillips Show on this Jimmy Buffett Friday. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you want to enjoy the program over the weekend, there's no live shows on Saturday or Sunday. That's easy to do. All you have to do is take out your handy-dandy smartphone and subscribe to The John Phillips Show. All of the episodes of the program will be downloaded automatically to your phone. And if you're enjoying your coffee on Saturday morning, going for a drive on Sunday afternoon, maybe you're on a boat, maybe you're on the golf course, whenever, wherever, you can enjoy us on Saturday or Sunday if that's what you'd like to do by subscribing to the podcast. All right. I don't know if you've been following this, but this is a story that's been leading all of the sportscasts on cable. I just saw something on social media and it piqued my interest. The WNBA, which is an organization that has spent a lot of time hating on their top player, Caitlin Clark, and if they're not trying to give her 2 black eyes and a broken leg, they're complaining that they're not paid what they're worth. One of the players on one of the teams who I've never seen before gave a press conference where she was extremely angry and said that she has to go play over in Russia because the janitor makes more than her. And she's the best player in the league, self-declared. And she said that's a travesty. And the players in the NBA, WNBA rather, are not respected the way the players in the NBA are respected. And recently, one of the things that has been going on at these games is that fans in attendance at these arenas somehow sneak sex toys into the arena, and then they take them, usually neon in color, and they throw them on the court during the game. And sometimes these objects end up hitting one of the players or multiple players because they're rubber and they bounce around. Not quite like the basketball, but you get the idea. When did that become a thing? I know at a certain point, and I don't remember the origins of this, but people would bring a dead octopus to a hockey game, and if something happened, they would take the octopus and they would throw it out on the ice, and it was supposed to give the team good luck. I don't know what the correlation is between a dead octopus and good luck. I've heard of the 4-leaf clovers and the horseshoes and the number 7, but never have I associated a dead octopus with good luck, but that happens at hockey games on occasion. But what's the point of throwing a sex toy on the hardwood at a WNBA game? I know that'll get you on social media, but what, do you think those players are all going to fight over it? Is that what you're hoping to see? I guess now it's gotten so bad at the WNBA games, they're not letting you bring any bags into the arena because they're afraid you're going to have more of these objects on your person and you're going to take those objects and throw them on the floor. So now they said, okay, no more bags. And if we stop the bags, then we'll stop this practice from happening. So now if you sneak one in, you have to sneak it in without bringing a bag. And somehow they're continuing to get these items into the arenas because it hasn't stopped. It happened, I think, twice last night. 2 different games. They had to stop the action because these objects ended up on the court. Without being allowed to bring in a bag, how do you get one of those into the arena? Now, I've never been to a WNBA game, but if you go to Dodger Stadium or you go to a Laker game, it's like going through a TSA checkpoint at the airport. You've seen that before, where you have to walk through the metal detector, you have to take everything out of your pockets, and you have to put it on the conveyor belt. So just think about that for a second. You have to take everything in your pockets. Otherwise, it's going to set off the machine. And if it sets off the machine, then you have to be set aside for private screening. So you don't want to set off the machine. So everything on your person has to go into the conveyor belt or in one of those dog bowls so you can get into the arena. It has to be teenage boys doing this. I can't imagine it being anyone else. This is, without question, a teenage boy prank. So what? You're going to have a 16-year-old boy walking up to the security checkpoint at the arena, and the security guard's going to say, okay, empty your pockets, put everything in this bowl here, and then we'll see you on the other side. And the teenage boy goes, okay, let's see what we got here. We got my phone. We got my wallet. We got my keys. We got my breath mints. And, oh, yeah, here's a big rubber penis. We'll put that down there, too. We'll see you on the other side. How do you get them into the arena without that flagging security? Now, I've never worked security before, but I have a feeling if one of these objects went through the conveyor belt, you'd be able to see it on the screen. Wouldn't you think? So what? The people sitting there looking at the screen are so out to lunch, they don't see that coming through? I mean, come on. The ones that have been thrown out on the court are huge. They're lucky. They're lucky that none of those players have been hit in the face with one of those things because it could give them 2 black eyes and knock out their teeth. God forbid. But they haven't caught anyone who's done it. Not one person has been caught throwing one of these objects on the court. Not a single individual has been ejected from the arena. Now, I'm not saying you need Matlock to figure this out, but what do those games get? 45 people in the stands? How hard could it be to find out who threw that on the court? You don't need to shut down the arena and question everyone who's there. You just need to look, count the people in the audience. Like, okay, there's Rosie O'Donnell over here. She didn't do it. Okay, we got a teenage boy up here in the balcony who's giggling and posting videos on TikTok. Gee, I wonder who it was. And apparently the players and the coaches in the WNBA, they're just absolutely furious about all of this. One WNBA coach said it's time to take action against people throwing these objects on the court during games, and says, quote, and this is an unfortunate use of words here, but this is what she said, "We're not the butt of the joke." Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve is demanding accountability and says that stunts are not funny. Quote, "This has been going on for centuries. It's not funny, and it should not be the butt of jokes on any radio show," sorry, lady, "or in print or in any comments," end quote. "The sexualization of women is what is used to hold women down, and this is no different," end quote. "These people who are doing this should be held accountable. We're not the butt of the joke. They are the problem, and we need to take action," end quote. So here's the thing. And any of you who have teenagers who have taught school, coached, you know what I'm going to say is true. The minute you go on TV and you tell everyone it's not funny, when everyone is looking at these videos and sharing the videos on social media with everyone in their social network, and they're laughing their asses off, and you say it's not funny, and you scold them, you're just going to get more of it. You just are. You're waving red in front of the bull. You think by going on TV and having those words come out of your mouth, that's going to put an end to all of this? Oh, no. You might as well have these ladies wearing helmets. Or how about the goggles? Remember James Worthy used to wear those? Have some of those big goggles out there so it doesn't get you in the eye. Because if you think it's bad now, after that coach went on TV and said those things, it's going to be like that movie Magnolia when the dead frogs were just raining from the sky. These things are just going to be coming down from the ceiling like a balloon drop. It's only been isolated incidents so far, but what's going to happen if you have like 50 of them coming at once? Apparently, sales for those items online are through the roof. People are buying them, all different colors, shapes, and sizes. But they're buying them, I'm sure, for the WNBA games. You know, when you go to some of these games, they have souvenirs that they give out. Sometimes it's a T-shirt. Sometimes it's a coffee mug. Sometimes you can run the bases on Sunday afternoons. Imagine if one of those teams gave these items away as part of a promotion. They might have a sellout. I don't know. Seems to be popular right now. But I can tell you this. I don't know what time the WNBA games start tonight. But I'll go on the record predicting the weather forecast says it's not precipitation that's going to be coming down from the sky. It's something else. I know I'm no Dallas Reigns or Sam Champion, but I think it's safe to make that prediction. If you have any thoughts on that, give us a call at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. It's the John Phillips Show. It's the John Phillips Show. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And I appreciate all of the emails you're sending in, but I don't know how to read the eggplant emoji on the air. And I really don't know what to do about this email here that has about 800 eggplant emojis. And then I have one that has the eggplant emojis with basketballs in the middle. Apparently, everyone got the same idea. There are some emails I'm getting with the eggplant emoji and other emojis, and I don't even know what those are supposed to mean. But I appreciate the correspondence. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Gary in Huntington Beach. Gary, hello.
Yeah, hi, John. Love the show. As far as the octopus goes out on the ice, when the original 6 teams played, they had to win 8 games to win the Stanley Cup. Octopus has 8 legs. Eight games to the Stanley Cup, and that's why they do it. And it's pretty much special to Detroit Red Wings.
I see. Well, that would make sense then. 8 wins. The octopus has 8 arms. Now I understand.
Very good.
How do you think they would respond to it at the Detroit Red Wings game if they threw these objects on the ice?
They'd get thrown out.
Yeah,
It's very dangerous with the sharp skates and the speed of the players today. They would get thrown out and maybe hopefully banned from attending any other games. That's just stupid.
Yeah, I think you're right. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. Let's go to Steve in Irvine. Steve, hello.
Hi, John. I called you about Katie Porter, but regarding the sex toys, that definitely does sound like something I might have done in high school. And you get them in with socks that come up to above your calf, or in the back of in your back, tucked down in your boxers. But Katie Porter, I don't think she will far as she thinks because she just does not have a very pleasing personality.
Now, in Irvine, I would imagine she is your congresswoman or was your congresswoman, correct?
Uh-huh. And I've met her before.
Oh, yeah?
And I met her at a 7-Eleven, and she was getting a really big Slurpee. And
You got to be kidding.
and she is kind of the epitome of a Karen, though, isn't she?
She was seriously getting a really big Slurpee?
Yes, she was.
Was she aware that you recognized her?
I think she was about mid-Slurpee Philip.
And did you give her a look of disapproval?
No, I just said, "Hey, Katie Porter." And she kind of looked up like she kind of got caught. You know, I mean, who doesn't like a big Slurpee, right? But yeah, I just think people in California will see like, do they want 4 or 8 years of a Karen lecturing them?
Yeah, I don't think the people will sign on to that. I really don't.
I mean, getting rid of Gavin to switch out for her is out of the pan into the fire, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate that. All right, we've got 2 more hours coming up on the John Phillips Show. Coming up next, we're going to talk to a Democratic super donor, a man who helps fund the Democratic Party and their candidates, John Morgan. He was one of the first ones to pull the plug on Grampy Joe. He's going to be here to talk about that and what he sees in the political future in California and beyond. Don't you go anywhere. It's the John Phillips Show.